The meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee for Wednesday, the 28th of February. If we can take apologies for absence first, please.
No apologies, Chair.
Okay, that's no problem. Can I give apologies for David Roberts, the lay member? He's on annual leave at the moment, please. If I can ask for any disclosures of interest, please. Any disclosures? Not seeing hands up anywhere. No. We can turn to the minutes of the meeting then of the 17th of January. We can take them page by page for accuracy, please. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4.
Sorry, Chair, I couldn't turn my microphone on quickly enough. Could, on page 2, paragraph 65, the first bullet point, could the word "these" be amended to such so that any alternative classification is considered in a wider context than just AR and AP? Thank you.
What paragraph is that, Julie?
Paragraph 65.
Where within that?
It's the first bullet point.
Ensuring the recommendations partly or not implemented. That's paragraph, is it?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Can you just drop a confirmation of what you want changed to Jeremy so that he's got a record for it, please?
Okay, thank you.
Go back to page 3, page 4, page 5. If there are accurate reflection, can I have some hands up, please? Hands up in the room, on screen. Yeah, thank you so much. They're a true record and they can be signed off. If we can move on to the Internal Audit Monitoring Report, quarter 3, I believe Nick is presenting this report. Nick, is Simon on leave? Do we need to give apologies for Simon, Nick?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Yes, Simon's on leave this week. He'll be back next week.
Okay. If you can introduce the report then, please, Nick, and identify any particular issues you want to raise for the Governance and Audit Committee members, please.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm presenting our Internal Audit Monitoring Report for quarter 3 for 23-24, which is agenda item number 4 in the reports pack, covering pages 6 to 31. So this report shows the audits finalised and any other work undertaken by the team during the period the 1st of October to the 31st December 23, and it's recommended that the contents of this report be discussed and noted. And as usual, happy to answer any questions or queries if you have any at the end. So if members can turn to agenda item number 4, and at the top of page 7, section 2, paragraph 2.1. So a total of 13 audits were finalised during the quarter. The audits finalised are listed in Appendix 1, which also show the level of assurance awarded at the end of the audit and the number of recommendations made and agreed. Appendix 2 provides a summary of the scope of the reviews finalised during the period. 2.2, there's a table of assurance levels for those 13 audits that we finalised. And you can see 4 at a high assurance, 7 a substantial assurance, and 2 a moderate assurance level. 2.3, a total of 154 audit recommendations were made, and management agreed to implement all of those recommendations, which is 100%. 2.4, all recommendations made are classified as high risk, medium risk, low risk, or good practice. And then again, in the table below, you can see a breakdown of those recommendations. So none were high risk, 21 medium risk, 118 low risk, and 15 good practice. Moving on to 2.6 and an update for committee then on staff sickness within the team, which has continued to be significant during the third quarter, with a total of 34 days of absence recorded. Cumulative sickness since the start of the financial year to the end of the 31st of December has totaled 138 days. And at the time of writing this report, we still have a member of staff on long-term sickness, and they continue to be supported by HR. 2.7, another update for committee really on the vacancy that we've got. We previously reported that a part-time member of staff had been absent due to long-term sickness for over a year, and that person has now finished with the authority in late September. The part-time post was advertised in October, but unfortunately the recruitment campaign was unsuccessful. And this was due to we didn't have many applicants, and the ones that did apply were not suitable for the post. So we've created a new full-time trainee auditor post. That's now been advertised, and we feel it's a more attractive option because it's full-time, and hopefully this should help with the team's succession planning going forward. But we still, to date, we've got a cumulative loss of 92 days in relation to the vacancy. 2.8, an update on the plan. We've had 55 audit activities which were completed.
Chair, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah,
Chair,
yeah.
if you can hear, everything was frozen. That's frozen on my screen. I know everybody else is the same as it, but
No,
Nick
I
is
think-
breaking up as well.
I'm okay here. Everybody's nodding they're okay. It could just be our machine mic.
Okay, shall I continue, guys?
Yeah, please.
So sorry, yeah, just 2.8 is an update on the progress of the plan. We finalised 55 audits, and we've got another 30 activities in progress, which is 73% of the plan. That's either been finalised or in progress. 2.9, 2 audit reports were issued with a moderate assurance level, and they were Christ Primary School and Trading Standards Division. Both follow-up audits have been scheduled, and we are due to revisit Christ Primary School in Q4 this quarter, and Trading Standards in Q1 of the next financial year. And of course, the results will be of the follow-up will be reported back to committee. Section 3, there's some possible changes here to the way we report moderate reports, but I'm not going to go into any further detail here as it is a suggested process, and it's summarised below. So I know that further discussions are due to be had with the chair, CMT and the chief auditor, but as I said, it's a proposal at the minute, and it does need to be discussed further. So I'll move down to section 4, which is the further work that the team have undertaken during the quarter. And you can see that we've audited and certified 2 grants, and they are listed in the table below. 4.2, we also completed the fundamental recommendation tracker, which was reported to committee last month. And the team has also commenced the annual consultation exercise with the heads of service across the council to help inform our audit plan for next year. 5.3, no audits with a moderate assurance level were followed up in the quarter because there was none scheduled. And section 6 is our follow-up reports of any audits with a high and substantial assurance level. This was a separate report, however, now we've combined it into our quarterly monitoring reports. And you can see in 6.2 in the table, there were 123 recs that were checked, and management have assured us that they've all been implemented. So there were 14 medium risk, 87 low risk, and 22 good practice. Moving down to Appendix 1, you can see the list of the audits finalised in Q3. Appendix 2 you can see the summary of the scope of those audits and any key findings and risks that we picked up. Appendix 3 is the status of the plan as at the 31st of December. And Appendix 4 then is the list of follow-ups that we've undertaken in the quarter. And you can see there's the 19 audits which are included. Okay, thank you, Chair. Any questions?
Thank you, Nick. With regard to section 3, you're quite right, further discussion needs to take place. Just for the minutes, I would state that I'm not supportive of those changes for purposes of timing mainly, and noting that the 2 moderate reports in the pack, you've reported moderate, but we still don't know the significance of the risks there until you suggest and we see the follow-up review, which will be potentially in Q2 before we get sight to that. So at the moment, both those reports, we know that there are issues there which justify the moderate opinion. But as a committee, we don't understand the significance of the risks associated with them. So I'm meeting the Chief Exec next week, and I'll pick this issue up with him as well. So just for the record, I would not want to support the changes that are being proposed, albeit they are proposals. So without further ado, if I can open up for questions now. Councillor Paxton Hood-Williams.
Sorry, Madam Chairman. Really, all I wanted to do is declare an interest in this item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor May White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do apologize. My screen froze and Nick was breaking up when he was giving the presentation, so I didn't really catch all of it. But in regards to Appendix 2, page 17, 19 on the agenda page, rather concerned reading the issue around education plan resources, also comprehensive school, regarding the delegated budget funds being used to pay for a leaving party for the head teacher. Now, you know, the delegated budgets are there for the interests of the children, for to provide resources for those children's education. And as you know, we've obviously been here before previously when we had an issue with one school obviously booking overnight stay in hotels. But as I say, I think reading this report, it's come up as a moderate item. And of course, it issues on the procurement as well. And I thought that we'd address this, Chair, by obviously given information through our procurement manager, advice to schools on what the process is for how they procure items and goods were over the value of £10,000. But my main concern is that obviously the use of funds from the delegated budget to pay for an actual retirement party for a leaving head teacher. And I don't think we should leave this go unnoticed. I think we should probably bring this to the attention of the Director of Education and a Cabinet member. So perhaps they can advise all our schools in Swansea exactly what the delegated budget is there for to provide the needs and resources for the children attending our schools in Swansea. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I totally agree with those comments. It was something I was intending to pick up as well, but and your suggestion of elevating it to the appropriate individuals to chase up, I think that's right also. Nick, are you planning to do a follow-up in this area?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor White. So, yeah, these findings came out of the audit, you know, that we undertook. I haven't got any further comments to make, you know, specifically, and I know that I've provided the Chair with the reports for Q3, so I'm sure she'll be happy to share this particular one, you know, with anybody that wants more detail around these areas. The school has responded in the action plan, so again, that's that's all there for any of the the members that want further information. So yes, we will be following it up, Chair, as part of our follow-up processes, and we'll see what the school comes back with, when it's time for them to see if those have been implemented.
Thank you, Nick. Can I confirm with you that you'd be happy for me to share that individual report with members of the committee?
Yeah, can I just confirm that the Director of Education would have seen that report as well, because that's part of the distribution process. So.
Okay. On that basis, then I'll forward a copy of that report to members, so everyone is cited of the risks and the issues raised.
Yeah, could I just
Yeah.
say as well, I did mention perhaps it's been brought to attention of the cabinet member for education as well. So I think with perhaps both the director and the cabinet member putting forward what should be the budget should be used, or what might hopefully add some extra strength to the concerns that we have as an audit and governance committee.
Okay. Can I ask members if everyone's happy for that to happen? Yeah, I've got some. Yeah. Okay. Jeremy, can you? Jeremy will action that for you then, Councillor White. Councillor Leslie Walton.
Yeah, that's, to be fair, Julie was before me, if you want to take her question first.
I normally take councillors elected first, Councillor Walton, and then the lay members will follow.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm going back to the proposals, changes for reporting, partly because I'd like to know some of the detail of the two moderates, and we've got virtually nothing here. So what's going to happen with these two cases? And I don't mean, yes, that's going to come back in quite some considerable time. What's going to happen in the immediate future? Because I'd like to know a bit more about these. I certainly hope that both departments have got everything in hand as they've agreed to implement everything. But I don't really think that gives us reassurance, does it? I don't think.
No, absolutely agree, which is why I've got concerns with what's being proposed. But similarly, Nick, would you be happy for me to share those two reports with members of the Governance and Audit Committee?
Yes, that's fine, Chair.
Okay, well, I'll action that as well. So we have got sight of it before we get that follow-up in a few months' time. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, that particular item Councillor White brought up, I declare I'm a member of the governing body on that school. I wasn't actually in the leaving do, but I just want to declare an interest actually in it, and I don't know if that affects me receiving the papers that you intend to send out. I don't think it does, but
Okay, I'll take advice on that then.
Yeah.
Thank you for raising that.
Yeah.
Nick, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, can I just say that the chair, the governing body, also received a copy of that report. So they'll be aware of any findings and any issues that we've picked up.
Okay, thank you. Julie, thank you for your patience, Julie.
Thank you, Chair. Nick, you've outlined in paragraphs 2.6 and 2.7 the difficulties that internal auditors faced in terms of long-term sickness and vacant posts. Looking at Appendix 3, there are quite a number of cross-cutting reviews and fundamental reviews that whose status is just allocated at the end of Q3. So what assurance can you or Simon give me that internal audit will be able to give a rounded year-end opinion, please?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Firstly, can I just say that the team are working extremely hard to complete as many audits as they can off the plan. There's currently 116, and to date, we've only had 5 deferrals. So the vast majority of Tier 1 and Tier 2 audits are complete or now underway at this point in time. Plus the vast majority of planned audits, again, are listed as complete or underway. So We have directed our resources towards the more important reviews, i.e. the tier 1 and 2s and the cross-cuttings. And, you know, I got some stats as we currently stand as of today, and nearly 70% of the plan now is complete, with another 15% currently in progress. So there's been great strides towards you know, pushing these audits to be done. You know, certainly in the last couple of months and after Christmas, because there's always a bit of delay before Christmas because we're looking at the fundamental reviews. But, you know, we have had vacancies, we have had sickness, and with those cases, we are, you know, asking the team to prioritise those fundamental audits and the tier 1 and 2 cross-cutting reviews. So at this present time, we have had a big push after Christmas, and you know, we're certainly better off than we were last year at this point now.
Okay, any more hands up? I've got a couple of questions. One is to follow up on what Julie's just raised. In a following report that Simon has put it before the committee, it makes reference to his anticipation that a number of reports may have to be carried forward. Without knowing how many that will be, if there are any that need to be carried forward, is that going to affect Simon's ability to give an opinion?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. At the minute, we've got 5. We've got 5 deferred for various reasons, you know, due to new systems coming in, due to staff resources and so on. We don't know at this point. As I said, it's only 5 out of 116, which I think is a small percentage, possibly 4%. There possibly will be a few more as we get to year end, but as I said, we are directing our resources to those high risk, important cross-cutting areas, and obviously we want to get those done by the year end. And all the planned audits that we've put on the audits, we have got to be confirmed audits as well, which was agreed at the start of the year when the plan was issued, but our resources are going towards those high risk areas.
Okay. Will he still be able to give an opinion?
I would think so. I can't say at the minute, Chair, but I know there has been a notable increase in completion of audits since the end of December.
Okay, then. What I will do, I will drop the Chief Auditor an email just to ask for that level of assurance. And if there's anything untoward that comes back, I will notify the Audit Committee members personally that will be the case. But I appreciate you can't make that statement, Nick.
Sorry, Chair, all I can say is, as I said, there's a lot more of the plan has been completed, certainly in the last few months, to when this, you know, the 31st of December, to when this Q3 report has been, you know, has been issued. So.
Okay. I've got a couple of other questions. I may sort of defer some of them because there are a few. But with regards to paragraph 6.1, you refer to the relevant services are asked to confirm implementation of recommendations. This relates to your high or substantial audits. Can you confirm if you check the evidence that they're offering when they confirm implementation of the recommendations?
The way we look at our highest substantial audit is slightly different to the moderates, because when we've issued a moderate report, we go out and we retest. With our high and substantial assurance, we just ask management to confirm that those recommendations have been implemented. So there's no evidence supplied as such. You know, otherwise that exercise, you know, would take 10 times as long if you like. So there's no retesting of any recommendations that we've issued. We just ask management to confirm that they've been completed.
Okay, I think that's important for members to note that it's an honesty request that's being
It is,
given
yes,
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. With regards to the appendix, I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to give you the headlines for the purpose of the minutes. of what questions I have. But to be fair to you, we've not had notification to be able to respond to some of my questions. So I'll take those outside of the meeting if that's okay by members. But when it relates to the adult services establishment, it is a substantial opinion, but I've just got a couple of queries regarding our methodology of these selections there. The other is the Integrated Community Equipment Service. I will raise this question though, Nick. Can you confirm if your testing looked at the service that Community Equipment Service Shrewsbury is providing to the residents of the needs?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd have to check the audit program for that to see what we've covered. Yeah.
Okay. If you can just confirm that for us, and perhaps that can be put in the action log, because I'm a little concerned as well there with inspections of the equipment are overdue. Just what's the risk associated with that, with the people using those pieces of kit then? Yeah,
we had a response. I think we put it there, but with staff shortages and difficulties in raising access. But I'll get some more information for you on that. Yeah, it's just for the audit committee to understand the risk associated with those things that are being used by residents potentially that are particularly frail or vulnerable. With regard to the Helios plant hire and transport, I'll come back to you on that one. I think there's an issue around control or the lack of control in that area. It's to do with the IT system, Paul, I think you're referring to, and they've been promised it for a while. Obviously, we've recently completed the audit up there, and we've been assured now that it will be installed and fully implemented by the end of March. Okay, but as it stands, there's no control operating within that area. There's a few control issues there, which we've been assured will be completed by the end of March. Okay. And the other two obviously was the Cross Primary School and the Trading Standards Division, which I will share those reports with members so that they're fully up to speed with that. With regards to, you mentioned both deferrals of audit reports. When you come back with the next monitoring report, can you give us the rationale as to why you're deferring those reports, please? Yeah, fine, Chair. I think we did that exercise last year. Yeah. Any reports that are deferred, we'll always get reasons from management to why they've asked us for that to be deferred, and of course we can add that into the report. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Nick, and thank you for your patience with me with those questions and the additional information please come back to us with. Okay. If we can move forward then to agenda item 5, internal control environment, and we've got Mark Wade with us today. Thank you, Mark, for popping in to present this paper for us.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for the invite, and to the committee as well for coming back again this year. I will go through the report, but I'll do my best to summarise for you today. Police Directorate you'll be more than familiar with, I'm sure, in terms of its sort of structure and functions. It's the operational face of the council in lots of ways, in terms of 7 operational service areas: highways and transport, building, property waste, parks cleansing, housing, and also the council's planning functions, as well as cultural services as well. So a broad range of services within the directorate, and the report sets out the various control arrangements and environment that we have in place to ensure that effective and efficient use of resources is made. Section 2 sets out the directorate approach to risk management and business continuity, and this will be consistent, is consistent with the other directorates across the authority. We plan through and use, I guess, a staircase approach for risk dealt both at a service level and directorate, and also incident above that, any corporate risks that need to be managed accordingly. The corporate online system is used as the sort of primary reference reference point for risks which are recorded and managed. Certainly reported here as well. So that is in place and is updated periodically to ensure that we are up to date with our management of risks. In terms of new and emerging risks, it's a continually, I suppose you'd call it a moving feast in some respects. We are seeing some significant pressures around demand for housing currently, which is no surprise, and also homelessness arising from that as well. Those are national issues, but we're certainly managing that seeing that and managing it at a local level as well. And also our approach to net zero is documented there as well in relation to climate change, and then how we, I suppose, resource and manage some of the risks that come from that. In terms of business continuity, each service area has a regularly reviewed business continuity plan, and which is put into place in case of any unforeseen events or emergencies. And those business continuity plans were tested to extreme during the pandemic, as I'm sure you'd be aware. Section 3 sets out the performance management framework that we use within the Directorate, including key performance indicators, and there are a number covering that broad range of service areas that we have, both at a local and national level as well. I mentioned climate change earlier on. We have developed a new suite of measures for all things climate change. A very difficult subject area to do that, but these are locally developed performance indicators that we feel will give an idea of the authority's progress towards meeting some of those objectives. In terms of section 4, then that picks out the planning and decision-making framework that we have in place. Again, talking through the latest performance information that we have, and also then any recommendations from internal and external audit which feed into that process, as well as in our governance structure, make sure that we have a robust planning, monitoring and review process in place, so that decisions are made and then recorded accordingly and are open to scrutiny as required. Section 5 then picks out the budget and resource management approach. Again, this will be consistent across the authority. Each month there is a performance and finance monitoring meeting, a PFM as they are known, involving myself and all of the heads of service. We are supported by our finance colleagues in that, who help bring together financial information for presenting the heads of service prior to that PFM meeting, and it allows us to be able to manage and monitor the overall budget situation that we have, including any pressures that arise during the year, as well as then a forecasting approach to be able to feed into the overall corporate approach to budget monitoring. Such other things that come to PFMs then would be things like our management and responses to freedom of information requests and subject access requests, as well as things like our compliance around sickness level, and then reference to procurement of financial controls as well. Be no surprise to you to hear me say that the budget remains under significant pressure currently. We are, as I say, frontline operational directorate, and demand for those services is consistent and consistently rising in some areas, as well as the overall pressures that we're seeing around high inflation and I suppose recovery from COVID impact as well, which is still being seen in some areas, albeit positive progress is being made elsewhere. In terms of the directorate absence levels, there's reference there to days lost, which we obviously have a keen focus on, and the information there, which I'll not go through for now, but is explained. The financial and financial impropriety, fraud and financial impropriety section is set out in section 6. and the controls that sit within that to enable officers to do their jobs effectively in accordance with the relevant accounting instructions, contract procedure rules, and financial procedure rules, as well as then regular internal audits from Nick's team that help provide assurance around those areas. In terms of schemes of delegations, there is control in place around orders being placed and then payments being made to suppliers, as well as then the use of P cards as well is strictly controlled. So there is a strong framework in place across the directorate there as well. Section 7 is the compliance focus, policies, rules, and regulatory requirements. A number of services are regulators themselves to external organisations and bodies, so it's certainly an area that the Directorate is particularly familiar with. Broad range of service areas. There are regular requirements to attend scrutiny, for example, dealing with a range of high-profile projects which and ongoing programmes which the Directorate may be involved with. The processes then for monitoring compliance sits with our senior management teams within each service area, reporting up then to the Directorate management team that I chair, as well as then standard meetings, individual meetings with officers around performance appraisals and one-to-ones. There is dedicated sickness resource management within the Directorate to manage those absence figures that I referred to earlier on, and we've seen some positive improvements in those areas as a result of that. However, it is a continued area of focus for us to look at in terms of absence management. Referenced in the report, the Service Transformation Committees in here as well, which are assisting with the process of transformation and the authority's transformation agenda. Particularly in the Police Directorate, we service and report through the Climate Change and Nature Recovery STC, Service Transformation Committees, as well as then the Economy and Infrastructure STC as well. And there are a number of key projects and reporting topics which are listed in paragraph 7.4, and that remains is reflective of the large amounts of investment that the service is responsible for delivering on the council's behalf. Programme and project assurance arrangements are set out in section 8. I won't go into those in huge amounts of detail other than to say that there are various programme boards and steering groups in place to ensure robust management of projects and appropriate reporting through to them as well. And that again shows the I suppose the reference to compliance with our financial procedure and contract procedure rules. Building services would be the example which is referred to in section 8 there as well. It's a turnover of 90 million in Nigel Williams's area as the head of service there. Large capital programs in relation to housing and education projects each year, and there are again robust project management arrangements in place through that. We have a small team of project managers as well who are able to pick up and assist the heads of service with project delivery. And there are a number set out there in relation to things like ongoing IT projects, which again help us with our overall governance and our ability to demonstrate compliance. As well as then individual projects like rollout of CCTV and Wi-Fi, and also then other areas which are being reported through to various committees in relation to our regeneration projects. Transformation Board is referenced there as well. We've got a number of different projects serviced by Place reporting into the Transformation Board currently. Some areas I've touched on, but focus on regeneration, more homes, which is the dealing with the supply and increase the supply of housing, our future waste strategy, and how we may work towards improving or maintaining and improving our recycling performance. Net zero I mentioned, and green fleet features, as well as then reference to the future community hubs and library model that's being worked on currently. Section 9 is internal controls, and without repeating anything I've said already there, much of that falls to the PFM process, performance and finance monitoring, to give that oversight of directorate activity and assurance. Audits I've mentioned are regular and frequent. And also there, it allows us to show resilience in the way that we provide services as well, by being able to move resources around and flex effectively when needs be. In terms of section 10, that's data security. Again, key focus for us. We deal with and manage lots and lots of personal information which are held on lots of databases. In examples like housing, but also many other areas where complex personal information is held. And we treat our data security very seriously as a result of that. Breaches, however, do occur, and they are monitored and are reported in section 10 here that you will see. In proportional terms, they're relatively small in number. However, any breaches is of serious concern, and the council's data officer gives regular reports to me in relation to our performance in relation to that, and also we're able to discuss then any particular breaches that may occur and what learning we may need to put in place to ensure that that doesn't happen again. Section 11 picks out the partnership and collaboration governance. The authority obviously is a big entity in itself, but we partner and work with lots of other organisations as well to deliver our statutory duties and projects. Things like a city deal you'll be familiar with, and also more recently our interface with the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee, where there's a particular focus and lead from Swansea on transport planning. But we're also involved with our regional colleagues in setting out the committee's work around strategic development planning, planning itself, then economic development, and also energy and energy efficiency. So lots of work going across the region there to ensure that we are making South West Wales as prosperous and as green as it possibly can be. The integrated assessment implications, I won't go through in a lot of detail here, but it's very much central to our reporting processes, and all of our reports go through the IAA process to ensure any actions that we are taking are properly thought through, considered and consulted on when that's required. And then that gets us into legal and financial implications, of which there are none specifically detailed in this report. So whistle-stop tour of place internal control. Hopefully that's been of use, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mark. Councillor Mike White, you've had a hand up for a while.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Can I take you to page 33, performance management KPIs, section 3. 3.1 says about each service area reports on performance indicators by the national or local measures reporting takes place accordingly. What do you mean by accordingly? How often do you look at key performance indicators in each service area?
Thank you, Councillor White, for the question. But the answer to that is it varies, and I think that's why that word is being used. There are various performance indicators in large numbers, which are reported either on a quarterly or sometimes an annual basis. And again, some of those are both local and then national. So depending on what the specific indicator is, it may have different parameters as to when we actually report on those. So the suite is there, and I'm sure colleagues such as Richard Rowlands will be able to go in a bit more detail on that for specifics. But yeah, that's why a general statement has been made there. There are a number of them which are subject to different monitoring and frequency periods.
Can I just have a follow-up there, please, Chair?
Yeah.
What happens if you find slippage in an area? How quick are you to sort of pull the area back on course?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor White. Again, I think the answer to that is it may vary depending on what the particular issue is. I think the interface there is with our risk management process. I think our risk management process is the way that we would deal with some issues up front, whereas I think KPIs and key performance indicators are perhaps showing where things are perhaps slipped after the event. So we try to do both to be able to be as responsive as we can to any areas where performance may be slipping, and try and get ahead of those issues as we can. So the answer to that is we will respond to those as quickly as we can, and as quickly as resources will allow, and the risk management process then through the senior teams and up to me as director, and then beyond that to our corporate management team, is the process that we would use to try to address those performance concerns if there were any.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Hi, Mark. I know we haven't met, and I suppose I sympathise with you. Really, it's quite a huge directorate, especially with the upcoming financial pressures. It's going to be pretty tough, I think. But perhaps referring to what I see, looking at it as a success story, is the managing absence. You know, a reduction of 13.95% really from 21-22 to 22-23. You know, sickness absence is really a problem, you know, throughout the council. You've actually mentioned a dedicated resource here. Is the dedicated resource only actually related to your directorate? And, you know, why has this resort actually brought about the reduction in absence itself? And if so, you know what I mean, do you actually share that information with other directorates?
Yeah, and thank you for the question on that. I think it is a dedicated resource. However, there are those arrangements available in other directorates and in operation in elsewhere in the authority as well. I'll hopefully be able to provide some assurance around that. It's not an area which is isolated to place, because it's a corporate priority for us to address that. So good progress has been made. I think the only caveat to that would be during some of the periods here, it was during the pandemic, so there were lots of absence days there as a result of people being away from their work due to that. However, good progress is made, but it is an area of continual focus for us. It's any day lost is not a good one for a variety of reasons, both personal to the staff member and then the service that they're not delivering when they're not around. So we do maintain that focus. We rotate that resource as well across the service areas, so managers are aware that that assistance is available to them to deal with either high numbers of sickness or perhaps the more complex cases as well that may need a focus, or those longer term ones to bring to an end and or provide the appropriate support. So I think it's an ongoing area for us, but it is an area where we've recognised the need to ensure that there is a sufficient resource to be able to get those figures down, because they need to continue to come down.
So we may have a better picture really with regards to 23-24, how successful it is.
Indeed, yes.
Thank you.
Julie Davis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark, for the comprehensive report. Section 2 on risk management and business continuity, you state at section 2.4 that the red corporate risk on homelessness is being closely monitored. And further on in our agenda pack, we've got the detail of the risk. 2 of the control measures are long-term measures, such as increasing the supply of housing and lobbying the Welsh Government for more finance. Are there any other shorter-term control measures that are being implemented or looked at, in addition to the one which provides advice to people to minimise the risk of homelessness?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. And it's a good one and a very relevant one as well. Actually, the answer to that is yes. There are a number of additional control measures which are sit underneath that. The high level one is there around basic rules of supply and demand are the ones which are set out. However, we do have things like there are active work ongoing at the moment to try to increase the amount of supported housing that we have available, and to develop move-on options for from our temporary accommodation as well. So you're right there. That in itself could be a whole report to this committee, I think, around the controls which are going on in place there. But yeah, just to provide assurance, there is a whole raft of actions that sit underneath our overall management of that risk, and that flows from our homelessness strategy. Swansea not unique, as I said earlier on, but some acute pressures currently because of our collective ambitions to try to end homelessness. But that's a real battle at the moment for lots of different sort of competing reasons as well.
Okay, and if I could ask a couple of questions on performance. Later on in our agenda pack, we're told that there's a new integrated performance monitoring system and report that's been produced. So I was wondering, in terms of us getting added assurance about the Directorate's performance, whether some more meat can be put on the bones, but notwithstanding the fact that other arenas scrutinise and monitor performance. And the second question in terms of performance, one of your new local PIs, CCNR1, it monitors the number of trees planted during the year across the council. But I wonder whether monitoring a discrete number is advisable, because you're not necessarily monitoring the number of trees that are cut down or otherwise removed. So you're not looking at the net increase or decrease in trees across the authority.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Just to, in terms of the first point you made, we're actively engaging with that new system now around performance monitoring, and heads of service and the data inputting officers are engaging with that now. So we would certainly we're hoping that will help, I suppose, make our input and monitoring processes even more efficient than they are already. But yeah, absolutely right. There are other fora for I guess reporting on and going into detail in relation to the overall performance of the Directorate. The trees one is very topical at the moment, isn't it? And it's also very a good question that you've asked there. I won't attempt to answer that in a lot of detail at this stage, because colleagues who work in that area would be able to probably give you a more robust answer than I can in relation to that. But it does appear crude as just as a pure numeric. So I think, however we report that, I think we need to ensure that it's properly caveated along those lines as well, so it's not misleading in any way. And what I will say is these indicators are our first attempt really at trying to put something together that allows us to give a bit of a barometer. There is no national suite yet in relation to this particular area, and we'll certainly be working with our colleagues and with Welsh Government to try to do that, because it's difficult to assess, I suppose, our progress in some respects, but of some of these smaller issues, smaller individual issues, based on how we might compare with others. Whereas things like emissions data, for example, that is collected on a national basis, and we're able to see where we sit. So yeah, a valid point, and I'm happy to take that away on the trees point.
Thank you. Ness, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just to say that the new style performance report, Q3 performance, is actually going to be discussed at Cabinet at the end of March, I think the 21st of March, and that report then will come to Governance and Audit Committee as an information report, so you will see the detail. And although it doesn't show it by Directorate, it shows it by work, by wellbeing objective. That will give you detailed update on the performance against the steps within the corporate plan as they relate to both Mark's Directorate and all the other directorates too.
Thank you, Ness. I'm not seeing any more hands up. Sorry, Gordon.
Thank you, Mike. If I can go back to the 0.57 managing sickness absence. What percentage does 45,000 relate to? And when you give percentage decreases, could you also give a comment as to whether you think that is a good percentage, a bad? There's no context for us to understand what 14% means.
That's also a very good question. I won't try and attempt to estimate the first answer to that in terms of the overall percentage, just in case I provide some misleading data. So I need to take that away. If that could be picked up as an action, I'm happy to give some context on that, just to make sure the committee's given accurate information. In relation to that overall percentage, yeah, again, useful to see where we're at. That is a declining percentage, which is always good, but we want to see that as low as possible. There's no doubt about that. Nearly 14% is positive in terms of a percentage decrease. But being able to set that in some further context, I think I probably prefer to do in writing for you, if that's okay.
Questions in the room? I'm not seeing any on screen. If I can come back, Mark, to Councillor Mike White's comments on KPIs. Do a full suite of the KPIs go to the PFM meetings monthly?
And we also then will look at
Okay.
Sorry, Paula, we can't hear.
Can't
Apologies, that's because
try again.
apologies, that's because I didn't have my mic on. So yeah, I now need to remember what I've just said. I think in terms of the monitoring, no, it's not done on a monthly basis. There is a quarterly review of our PIs, and also then the review of specific reports which are coming through to the various fora that Ness has just mentioned. And also then we tend to use the risk management process as well to be dealing with any issues on risks and issues then on a topic by topic basis, rather than a review of all of the indicators each month. Some aren't reported and updated every month either, as well as the other things. So I think in real terms, monthly reporting there wouldn't be practical in those terms.
Okay, so the point Mike was picking up about, if there's challenges in any area, how quick can you pull them back? In the context of what you just said, it may be a month or two.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and I'd certainly I would be deferring to the heads of service in that area to understand and have a more in tune barometer of what was going on in their individual areas. Chair.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to, expand on that a little bit, because it was a really good question that was raised by Councillor White, and I just wanted to get underneath what the delay would be if there was a challenging area. Good to see a percentage decrease in sickness and absence. I think it's the right way to go. I'm pleased that the dedicated resources having that impact. With regard to the current level of sickness and absence, how are the agency costs looking to cover those sicknesses and absence? Are they going higher, or are they also coming down?
There are you'll be aware, Chair, that there are pockets of the directorate that use agency staff more than others. We obviously want to see agency staff usage as an absolute minimum. I suppose it falls into two categories. One, I suppose the large operational areas where there may be a frequent turnover of staff, but a high need to be able to provide a service on that day, and agency staff are used on occasion to deal with those things. Then there is a complete opposite end of the spectrum where there are perhaps some scarce specialist roles that we may struggle to fill due to shortages nationally or otherwise of particular professionals. So I think the cost again would be monitored. Are monitored by the individual service areas. They have to be able to justify that they can't have sufficient budget to be able to bring in an agency member of staff to address those areas. But I know where certainly in waste, for example, where which is the operational I suppose, area where it is used most, there is an acute awareness of what that cost is, monitoring of it, and attempts to ensure that that is brought down to a manageable level. And I know the managers are very, very keen to see that as a continued focus, as am I.
Thank you. If I can refer to 7.3, you talk about performance and compliance around mandatory training is strong. Some areas of improvement are required. Can you give us a flavour of where those areas of improvement are required?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My understanding of that would be around our refreshers. I think that's where we have a particular focus in terms of ensuring that particular courses are repeated and updated then by members of staff, particularly those who have been here a little while. So I think there's a general, I wouldn't pick out one particular area, but certainly our focus is on ensuring that the matrix of courses that we have, that people don't let that training go stale, and that it gets refreshed, rather than new members of staff when they're coming in. The onboarding process takes care of that, but it's the actual maintenance then and repeats and refreshers, which is our key focus really for our core workforce, and that does come down to things like health and safety training, for example.
Which is an important one to keep up to speed with the penalties you can get from those. I think I've just got one more question before we leave the report. You talked about breaches, data breaches, and there was the numbers there are small, I grant you that. But as a result of that, have any penalties been incurred?
Pleased to say that I'm not aware that any penalties have occurred. The breaches referred to here are reported through to our PFM meetings by the Data Protection Officer. I'm not aware there have been any that have resulted in penalties. However, we do, regardless of what the outcome is, we do take those breaches very seriously, and we do share them in confidence across the Directorate Management team to make sure that any breach that may have occurred in one area is reported through and shared with the heads of service, so they're aware of the learning that comes from that, because sometimes those areas may be having a similar practice, for example, that they may want to ensure that there's no repeats elsewhere, really. So no penalties, Chair. However, continual process of learning and improvement, really.
Councillor Mike White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's coming back to the point that you flagged up with 7.3, says about the training courses and all that with officers and freshers. Have we got an induction program in place, Mark, for new people coming in?
Yes, there is. There's an induction program for new starters, and we're actually working corporately on a refresh for that at the moment. So there is a corporate version of it, but again, the individual heads of service, depending on the role, will have bespoke offers then for new members of staff, depending on what their duties require them to do. And that then does include things like shadowing and mentoring from existing members of staff, councillors. So yes, in answer to the question, there very much is an induction process as part of that, as well as those benchmark core mandatory courses that we would require people to do.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. There are no more questions on this paper then. Can I thank you, Mark, for coming in, and I appreciate your time because I know how busy the area that you work in is. If you want to leave the meeting now, you're welcome to leave.
Great,
or if you want to stay, it's entirely up to you. Thank you so much. Okay, if we can move on then to the Audit Wales report, I think is the next one on the agenda. And Matthew.
Fernando, Chair, thank you very much, and good afternoon, members. Those who don't know me, you may remember my colleague Bethan Roberts, who was the audit lead for Swansea. So she's currently on maternity leave So I'm just standing in temporarily to cover her, just to introduce myself, really. So this is the quarterly update, which obviously we produce each quarter, just giving details of current progress of all Audit Wales work. So you'll see links to reports throughout the update, which you can view on our website. Where there's no links, that's just because they probably haven't been uploaded yet. So you'll probably see that in the next update. And just a reminder to members that all reports or local reports go to scrutiny committee usually, and then they will be tabled at governance and audit committee. So we will usually present those reports separately. Just looking there just quickly at the annual audit summary. So we'll produce a similar audit summary this year, which just covers is like a backwards look at work carried out throughout the year. In terms of financial audit work, so the audit of 22-23 accounts is in progress. There's some slight delays with this, which our financial audit team are working with relevant officers in the authority towards completion. And there's the usual certification of grants work ongoing there. In terms of performance audit work, the 21-22 work is complete, including Spring Forward Workforce report, which has now been published, and asset management. We've had recent discussions with the team on that. So that will be presented to scrutiny committee, and governance and audit committee will be cited as well. There's also recent work on our transformation plan, which was published. In terms of 22-23, we've done work on performance information, the service user perspective, and setting of wellbeing objectives. Work on digital strategy, which is now published. The only one outstanding there is our work on unscheduled care, which should be reporting on that very shortly. In terms of 23-24 work, we, of course, do the ongoing assurance and risk assessment work. So we're continuing to share updates with your corporate management team. We really welcome the updates we've got back from that on this as we progress that work. So we're keeping that sort of current picture there. In terms of our thematic work, which takes place across all 22 councils, we'll be beginning some work on commissioning and also financial sustainability, which is obviously a real interest given the current pressures. So we'll be looking to report on that, conduct the work and report as soon as possible, really, this year. And there's just a little bit there around local government's national studies planned and in progress, which just includes our recent brownfield regeneration work. You'll also be interested to see an upcoming national review on homelessness as well, and how local authorities are working together to respond to that. There's a series of national and regulator reports, which I won't go into in detail, but they're there for you to look at. And I'd just like to highlight our good practice programme there, which has got resources for you, and also future events can be found on our website. There is an upcoming one on homelessness, a webinar on that with Nova Scotia, so learning lessons from that, and I'm happy to share the link on that, which is open to members and council officers to join, and that is early March, I think. So yeah, I'm happy to share that. And I think that's about it from me, and I'll stop there if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Any questions for Matthew from members? No? No. Matthew, a note with interest on page 61, the title Audit Committee, what does good look like? And some sharing of good practice in a future event. Will that give us an opportunity to attend that event? It's due for spring 24.
Yeah, so I believe our good practice team are making arrangements on that, and I probably need to just see where they're at with that. But the team have usually been doing these in a series of webinars, so I imagine that'll be an online event, which will be open to all. And of course, I can share that with yourself, Chair, if you'd like to share that with members.
Yes,
but yeah,
please.
I probably just need to get an update on where we're at with that. But yeah, of course, I can share that.
Yeah, because if there's any sort of learning or good practice that we could pick up, then we'd be more than happy to do so to enhance the work that we currently do. If there are no more questions, then Matthew. Sorry, Councillor Leslie Walton, I missed you then.
Yeah, just a quickie on the same point. I assume R&D means research and development.
Yeah, apologies, councillor. Yeah, that was it's like separate part of our organisation, which will specifically look into those areas with good practice, kind of good practice approach. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions then for Matthew, there is an item on the agenda, Matthew, I hope you're staying for, and that's the Audit Wales recommendation tracker. I'd be keen to have your view when we come to that agenda item as to if there's anything additional that you feel we need to be made aware of within that report. But it's a huge step forward, and I'll put it on record now. I say thanks to Richard Rowlands and Ness and others who've been involved in pulling that work together, because it's a really good form of assurance that the council are moving ahead with the Audit Wales recommendations that don't necessarily come that visibly to us as a governance and audit committee. So I hope you can stay for that one, Matthew.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to stay for that, Chair. That's very much obviously for yourselves to look at, but I'm happy to be there to take any questions that I can, of course.
Lovely, thank you. If we can move on then to the internal audit planning methodology report. Oh, sorry, I missed one. All right, okay. Richard? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. No problem. Yeah, so just to give you an update on where we are with the risk management review that we reported back to the committee in the last meeting. So we have completed the review. Just to remind members that it involved an assessment of risk management practice across Wales. It covered about a third of Welsh councils, including Cardiff as well. We also had discussions at our leadership team, which is basically our heads of service and our directors. Also with the chair and with CMT and cabinet as well. And so we have identified improvements and changes that can be made to our risk management framework and to our practice. So just in summary, firstly, being able to distinguish between risks, which, as you know, are uncertain events that might occur, and then issues, which are events which have already arisen and are being or need to be addressed. So as a result of the review, we're looking to have two separate registers. We're looking to have a risk register, and we're also looking to have an issue register as well. Secondly, the other thing that came through the review was about us being clearer about the degree of risk or uncertainty that is acceptable to the council in different circumstances. So I think in practice that means about us being clearer about what our risk appetite is and our tolerance regarding individual risks. One of the third things that came from the review was the need to rationalise the number of tiers of risks that we have to try and help simplify the management of risk. So what we're looking to do is to have two tiers of risks: strategic risks and operational risks. The fourth thing that came from the review was around the quality of our discussions around risk management. So what we're really looking to do is to improve that, and so that the discussions of risk management becomes a routine part of that management dialogue. So at our PNFMs, but also one-to-ones at Cabinet, CMT, and so on. And in that sense as well, having a regular report to Cabinet where there is reporting on the most serious risks facing the council, and then lastly building that into our new performance management and risk management ICT solution. So we're in the process now of bringing all that together, and we're starting to develop our new risk management framework and our policy. And the intention is to bring that to the committee, a draft of it to the committee on the 10th of April, before we take it through to Cabinet and before we start to work with services on making the necessary changes. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions for Richard by members? Councillor Leslie Walton.
Yeah, thanks, Richard, and thanks in particular for reviewing the level of risk, because I've always said in the past, you've got to be very careful that you distinguish between what's a high risk, but is it still worth taking? Whereas sometimes a low risk might be more likely to happen. And you've got to be careful about differentiating between those two. Sometimes the former is more important, sometimes the latter is more important. So thanks for sort of addressing that. Thank you.
Just to add to that, we've agreed to have member training on risk management in the June 2024 period. So hopefully that'll give us a better insight on how that's bedding out by that June time. So I look forward to seeing that when it arrives. There are no other questions then. Sorry I missed that on the agenda, Richard. So
No problem.
I'm sure we will come back to that.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, agenda item 8, internal audit plan methodology. Nick?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's an information only, so I'm just going to briefly touch upon what's contained in the report. So
Yeah, if no need to go through paragraph by paragraph, Nick, you can just summarise it.
Yeah, so it's basically a report which provides committee with comprehensive briefing on the methodology used to prepare our audit plan. And as you can see in the report, the stages that we undertake to build our risk-based plan, taking into account a number of different inputs and considerations. So I think Appendix 2 probably demonstrates this planning process quite well. So nothing more to add really for this report, Chair, as this information only, but okay.
Okay, are there any questions from members? I've got it. Julie, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Chair. Nick, at paragraph 2.8, the first bullet point, sorry, the third bullet point, which is actually on the top of page 67, you say that fundamental audits that receive a moderate assurance rating remain on an annual audit cycle, with a full audit being completed every year. Do you think it might be worth you recognising in this document that you perform a follow-up audit for moderate assurance ratings? And should nil assurance audit also be reflected in this section?
Sorry, Julie, what was the second part of the question?
But you don't make any mention of any audit that would have a nil assurance rating. You only go down to moderate.
Oh, do you mean limited?
Yeah, limited, sorry.
Right,
so
yeah.
yes, you've got high, substantial and moderate, but not limited.
Limited, yeah, we can add that, Julie, that's fine, yeah.
Thank you.
Nick, I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this one or whether I need to refer to Simon. On the internal audit plan methodology, you mentioned the bullet points at the bottom of page 65. I was just wondering if you also consider the performance against the services provided across the piece. So if performance is challenging or good, if that's taken into account, and also complaints across different services, because they're both good indicators of where there are potential risks in the formation of your risk-based plan. So, if you feel you'd rather Simon comment on that, I'm quite happy for Simon to come back to me.
Yeah, I'll refer that to Simon, Chair, but we can, if we can get the data on that, we'll certainly, consider that, yeah.
Okay, so that's performance against each of the services and the directorates, and the complaints against each of the services and directorates. And also, if I can refer to page 90, where you've got, it's on health and safety, really, it's a point that Mark Wade picked up. I noticed that within the management assurances, they've got health and safety audits that are currently undertaken. And you're also referring, you've got health and safety in the audit plan. Do you know when that health and safety audit was last done? And if it also contained testing against the risk management controls that are shown later on a page 159. It talks about in the risk report, health and safety audits and inspections are regularly undertaken and reported to the Health and Safety Committee of the Council. But I just wondered, what's contained in your health and safety audit reviews, and whether you do look at the robustness of that process. Again, if you want to come back to me on that one after speaking to Simon, more than happy.
Yeah, that would be best, Chair. I need to find out when we last undertook the audit, and again get the scope to see what we looked at. But yeah, if I can come back to you on that, Chair, that'd be good.
Okay, and one final comment again, if you want to take that back to Simon, recognising the pressures you've been under for the last 2 years with staff resources, I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity for you to reconsider the size of the plan that you're delivering, because you've got 116 pieces of work in the current year's plan. You looking maybe having to defer. There was some deferrals last year. Is whether when you're planning for 24-25, you plan to do less and you increase the contingency, so that you are suffering with ongoing staffing issues with sickness or vacancies, you still going to achieve sufficient to give an opinion, and potentially a bit more if your staffing situation improves. Again, please take that back to Simon. I think it's appropriate timing now to reconsider, are you trying to do too much when you've got an ongoing staffing problem, and what less can you do while still being able to provide an opinion?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's difficult with the staffing because it's something that you can't plan for really. But as you say, we can build in that contingency hopefully into the plan. We're certainly happy to for myself and Simon to meet as we did last year. I think the draft plan, Simon's working on that at the minute, and it's nearly there. So yeah, we're happy to look at the volume of audits that we've got in there, and maybe we can decrease that a little bit, and to make sure we get the full coverage going forward. Yeah,
it just takes the pressure off you as well in managing to deliver that work. So it's advice really. I would suggest you look at that.
Thank you, Chair.
If there are no other questions, then if we can move on to agenda item 9. And if I could welcome, oh no, Sarah's away. I think Ness, you're taking this one.
I am, thank you, Chair. So this report is the complaints and compliments report for the financial year 22-23, and it's provided as an information report to the committee to give you assurance on the way in which we are managing our complaints, and also highlighting the compliments that the council has received. Following last year, comments from the committee on the format of the report, we've looked at what other councils do in terms of the information that they pull together each year. And so you will find Appendix A and Appendix B adopts a different format, hopefully more comprehensive information this year to previous years. Appendix A covers corporate complaints, and Appendix B covers social services complaints and obviously compliments. So just to say, complaints help us understand the needs and concerns of our customers and our citizens. So we take it really seriously and seek to ensure that we learn lessons from any complaints that we receive. The other point to make is that the complaints policy and application of it is reviewed by internal audit every 3 years. The last audit was undertaken at the end of 22-23. And the report was provided a substantial report in 23-24. So that was pleasing to see. In the cover report, you'll also see under the financial implications that our upheld complaints resulted in financial redress in 22-23 of £11,013 as a result of social services complaints, and £250 in children's services. So I don't know, Chair, if you want me to take you through just the sort of highlights of both Appendix A and Appendix B, I'm happy to do so, or to just take questions, whichever you prefer.
I think we can take questions. We'll assume that members have read the papers and we'll take questions. So are there any questions for Ness on this paper? Julie?
Thank you, Chair. Ness, I've got 3 questions. I hope that's okay with you. At page 114, sorry, I've got my notes here. I wanted to understand how stage 1 complaints are recorded because they're dealt with by the service, and it's only at stage 2 that the complaints service gets involved. Is page 118, that is section 2.1.
Section 2.1. Oh, sorry, I've got the cover report 2.1. Sorry, let me just find
All
that.
right. It just says that stage 1 complaints, to begin with, complaints will be dealt with by the service department concerned and hopefully resolved. The reason why I'm asking a question is that an internal audit report identified that 1 complaint hadn't been recorded as such in the monitoring, and I'm wondering whether that is as a result of human error or whether there is a flaw in the reporting system, because I'm concerned to ensure that the reports are complete.
Yes, so there is a new system for complaints that was implemented in July this year, and that ensures that all complaints are both recorded, but also the progress of them through the organisation is monitored, and it has really improved the robustness of our data and our management of the process. So now we're seeing over 90% compliance rate with the times that we set that are set out in the policy for dealing with stage 1 and stage 2 complaints. So hopefully that provides you with some assurance that we have picked up that issue. So whether it was a system error or a human error, the new process and system that we've put in place has made sure that that's more robust.
Right, but I'm looking at the completeness of the reports, making sure that complaints are recorded on the system.
Yes, indeed. That is what, and that is what the system does. It records the complaints, it records the requests for service also, and so that has been addressed. Right,
and my second point, if you bear with me, Appendix A, in respect of stage 2 complaints, there's a table inserted at paragraph 9.2 in respect of KPIs, and it contains an explanation that between July and December, several were delayed due to workload and sickness within the complaints team. Now, the council workforce strategy, as I understand it, aims for an agile workforce. So our office has been developed so that they can be seconded to work on time-critical pinch points such as this.
They absolutely are. It is more challenging in respect to social services complaints because of the complexity of the process there. But also, as I say, as a result of the new system, we have seen much better implementation of deadlines and progress in respect of our complaints. So while those figures relate to 22-23, I can confirm to the committee that now our response rates and dealing with complaints is now over 90% consistently.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor
Did you have a third question, Julie?
Sorry, I amalgamated 2 questions into one for my first point.
Councillor Mike White, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ness. Can you tell me if we do a comparator with the other 21 councils in Wales in regards to complaints that the authorities receive in Wales? Because looking at the charts here, obviously most of the areas are, as you've already outlined, are mainly frontline services. So you're going to have issues there because probably in some of those services we don't know what's going to happen from day to day. Especially, if you look at waste collection, you might want an issue where they can't get access to perhaps work being carried out in an area where vehicles are able to get access. And the same with housing, perhaps if they can't get a response of one of our tenants to get access to carry out the repairs. But does Swansea actually carry an actual comparative with the other 21 authorities to see if these sort of same areas are actually flagged up?
Thank you, Councillor. I don't know if we do systematically in terms of a data comparison. I can certainly ask officers to provide you with that further detail, but I can say that there are consistent themes, particularly in the social services complaints that we're seeing across all councils, that an increase in demand and issues with recruitment of staff means that there are delays in provision in adult social care, for example. So the levels of complaints that we're seeing are consistent with other councils across Wales. But in respect of other service areas, I'd need to seek that information and provide it to the committee after the meeting.
Thank you, Ness. It was just really, to sort of find out exactly, if the other authorities are obviously having the same problems that we are in Swansea, But as I say, these are mainly frontline services where the bulk of the complaints come in from.
They are, as you say, and if you look, for example, missed bin collection, a complaint about that, well, then 30% of the stage 1 complaints, corporate complaints, were upheld. But when you look at where they are in terms of the frontline services and the types of complaints that we're receiving, it can be something like a missed bin collection, where you think actually the vast majority of people receive the service that they expect. There are hundreds and thousands of service actions every day, and there's a small minority that aren't able to be dealt with. And those are the sorts of complaints that we might be seeing in those frontline services.
Yeah, as I say, it's difficult. Some of those services don't know what's going to happen from when they start to when they finish. They really, it is a very, very high profile frontline service which residents expect of us.
And I think that the broader point about how do we learn the lessons from the complaints that we receive, because we do take them very seriously. So, for example, the information on complaints and compliments goes to our PFM meetings monthly, so that in directorates we can understand what complaints we're seeing and the causes of them, and then learn the lessons from them.
Thank you, Ness. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, Ness, excuse my ignorance here. We're talking about residents as customers and so on. What about complaints from councillors? Are we included in this process, or are we classed as something different? Is it a complaint from a councillor recorded anywhere?
I'll need to double check, councillor, whether they're whether complaints from councillors are included in these figures. I would expect they would be, but it's not my specialist subject, and I'm afraid Sarah, who's the head of service, isn't able to be here to answer the detailed questions today. So if I may take it away and come back to you with an answer, I will certainly do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ness. I'm not seeing any more hands up. Ness, can I just pick up within the report? Is it in the complaints outcome columns in scattered through the report? There's quite a large number of complaints which were upheld. Were there any financial penalties or recompense faced by the council as a result of that, apart from the costs you've identified in 3.1?
No, so in many cases, the being upheld will be having given an apology, for example. So if it's something like a missed bin collection where the complaint is justified and an apology is made, then that will be the kind of appropriate response. So
Right.
The only financial redress is included in the financial implications section.
Okay, that's good. That's good news. And the final one for me is, I note on page 141, Child and Family Services corporate complaints. There's a number of complaints there around Penderry team, but there's one particular one where checks were carried out without consent, and it's got the outcome was justified. I'm just looking for assurance that some action or learning has been taken place with regards to that.
So in terms of the specific,
Yeah.
I can ask for the relevant officer to provide you with an update, but in the general terms, the Children and Families Service at their PFMs look at the complaints, as I say, and also they do a sort of quality assurance and make sure the lessons learned are fed out to relevant officers in newsletters, etc. So I'm confident that that specific learning has been taken, but I can provide further assurance on that if required.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Ness. If there are no further questions, then can I express some thanks to Sarah and yourself for re-looking at the content of the report. It's much more informative, I think, than we've had previously, and it gives us certainly a flavour of what the situation is looking like. So I appreciate that, and thanks conveyed to you both. Ness.
Thank you.
If we can move on then to agenda item 10, which is the corporate risk overview. Richard?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the report starts on page 146 and it provides an overview of corporate risk during the third quarter. You can see in paragraph 2.3 on page 147 that all the corporate risks were reviewed at least once during the quarter. The changes that did take place during the third quarter can be seen in paragraph 2.3. We had 7 red risks in the corporate risk register as at the end of quarter 3. 2 risks were added, 1 risk was deactivated, and another risk was escalated to the corporate risk register. No risks had their RAG status changed. 1 risk had its residual risk score changed. We have a snapshot of the corporate risk registers at the end of quarter 3 attached at Appendix A on page 150, and there's a guide to the various headings in the report, which can be found in paragraph 2.4. And then just finally in paragraph 3 on page 148, there's a brief summary of the outcome of the risk management review that I outlined earlier. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions for Richard? Councillor Jeff Jones, is your hand up?
My apologies, I forgot to take it down.
Okay. Thank you. Obviously, it's pleasing to see the review of the corporate risk management framework is coming to a close, and we will be seeing something new emerge in the new financial year. And I certainly look forward to the training that we will have around that, so it gives us a fuller understanding of how well it's going to become embedded within the council. I just a comment really. I note also that the current control measure narrative throughout the report is improved in certain areas, but there are still some areas where it's a lot of things happening, but not necessarily exposure to the control. So I think that's something that is an ongoing journey, I think, to develop both training and education on the people that are trying to articulate the controls in place. The particular one I picked up was the impact of poverty. There's a lot of things going on, but you know, they're not necessarily controls per se. But if there are no further questions, then thank you, Richard. Thank you, Ness. I know a lot of work has gone into that, so appreciation from myself as chair, and I'm sure members will echo that appreciation. If we can move on to agenda item 11, which is the Audit Wales tracker. Is this Richard, you again?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the tracker, the report itself starts on page 176, and the tracker is there to review and monitor progress meeting Audit Wales recommendations. In the second paragraph of the report on page 176, there's a summary of each audit report and the work in progress to address the outstanding recommendations and the actions to implement those recommendations. And then we have more detail on each of these within the tracker itself, which you can see at Appendix A, which is on page 181. So if you look at the tracker, then we have both the national and the local Audit Wales reports within the tracker. The recommendations from those reports for all the recommendations that affect all local authorities in Wales, but also those which are specific to Swansea Council, and then the actions that Swansea Council intends to undertake to meet those recommendations, the progress against those actions, then a target date for completion. So the first set of pages, which you can see between 100 pages 181 and 185, that contains the recommendations and actions that are in progress and have yet to be completed. And then we have the second series of shaded pages of the tracker, which you can see in pages 186 to 191, and that lists the recommendations and the actions that have been completed. And also, just going back to page 185, we have a list of the Audit Wales reports that are, at least at the time of writing, pending or scheduled for the future, and they'll be added to the tracker after receipt. Thank you, Chair. Happy again to take any questions.
Thank you, Richard. This report is one that we've been waiting on for quite some time, because it gives us an ability to monitor the progress being made against Audit Wales recommendations, where some of these reports are going to bespoke working groups or scrutiny committees or other committees within the council. So we're not quite seeing the full picture when they go to those arenas, but at least by having this now, we can monitor the recommendations in the same way as the internal audit recommendations are monitored for progress. I found this really a step forward, and I do thank you, everyone involved in producing it. And Matthew, Audit Wales, I mean, this would be the first time that we've received that. I personally think it's an additional level of assurance from us, and I'd welcome if you've got any thoughts on the production of this report.
Absolutely, and thanks very much for the opportunity to speak on this, Chair. Yeah, just firstly, we really welcome the inclusion of the tracker at GAC. Not only can we see that councils are keeping track of progress, and we can see how you've organised that. It's also really helpful for us when we choose to do any follow-up work as well. It just kind of saves us a lot of work and a lot of your officers' time while we're setting that work up. It's a good basis to kind of start from that. Just as a reminder, we've got an organisational response process where we'll ask officers to provide a response to any recommendations, and we'll then do follow-up, which will be on the audit plan for the year. So that's kind of our mechanism for following up on this, and actually you can use that organisational response as a basis. I'm sure you have for putting the responses onto the tracker. So there's that kind of pathway through, if you like. And just to say, I wouldn't like to comment at the moment just on individual items on the tracker, because obviously that will be subject to follow-up work, which we'll clear with yourselves. But yeah, just to say it's really welcome for us to see. We really know that councils have a handle on responding to our recommendations when it's set out in this way.
That's very helpful, and I'm sure, Ness, you can communicate that back to the Cabinet and the CMT meetings. So it's very helpful and very good. Are there any questions with regards to the content of this report? I note on the first page, 181, I think it is, you've got 12 period dates. You've got 24-25. I don't know whether you can work to give particular months as you've done in each subsequent page, Richard, if that was at all possible. But I think this is the beginning of a journey that we'll get more into grips with as time moves on, and certainly with the link and the interface of the follow-ups that Audit Wales have just confirmed that they will be undertaking. So I've got no questions at this moment in time on it, other than a huge thanks to you all. Are there any questions or comments by other members? Oh, okay, on that basis then, if we can move on to agenda item 12. We're close to the end of the meeting now, folks. The Governance and Audit Committee Tracker report is the report that gives us the ability to ensure that we receive all the information that we've requested in prior meetings, and looking to see when that information is coming back in other cases. If I can just pick up, there's a typo on action 37, 38, and 38, where you refer to a 10th of April date. and it's 23, it's a 24 year.
Okay.
So if we can get those amended. I've got no other questions on this unless any members have got any questions to raise. No, we can move on to the Governance and Audit Committee work plan. Again, this is for information to ensure that we're receiving everything that we were planned to receive, and it gives us a sort of a reflective opportunity to see whether there's anything additional or anything for the future that we need to build in. Are there any questions on this? If not, and attached to that.
Chair, can I just
Yes.
come in there? Sorry, I was just, I think the tracker says that you're going to have an update on the agency workers, and I can't see that on the April meeting on the forward plan. So as well as the sickness absence, I think you're also having an update on the agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Chair, I thought that would be all in the one report, so they're
Yeah.
separate reports, are they?
I did ask for it to be combined at one time, so
okay.
we could see the correlation between sickness levels and agency costs.
In that case, we will do it as a combined report.
Yeah, please, thank you. Also to that final report is the Governance and Audit Committee terms of reference, and that's again to ensure that we're fulfilling the requirements of the work of the committee, and enable us to give that annual report into the full council in 2024. If there are no further questions on those last couple of reports, they are information reports. I'd like to bring the meeting to a close, and thank you for everybody and your participation and your questions, and also to the officers for responding as well. So I'd say good evening, everyone, and stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Thank you, Chairman, and go back.